Yeah.
Good.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Thursday, April 28th Douglas Planning Board meeting to order. Time is 7:01. First on the agenda is citizens forum. Anyone here for anything other than what's on the agenda? Anyone online?
Go home.
Seeing as none. A&Rs, any A&Rs come in?
No, sir.
All right. Public hearings. 7 p.m. Public hearing continued from 4/14/2022. CRG Services Management LLC. Application for site plan review. SPR-220215, 105 and 123 Gilboa Street, and 470 Northeast Main Street. Possible votes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
If I could share my screen. Actually, yeah, I'm going to grab it. Yes.
Presentations.
Bit of a soccer mishap.
So, are you on there?
Yeah, I'm up there under Todd Moore. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Members of the board, again, I'm Todd Morey with Beals Associates. We're in charge of the entitlements, permitting, and civil site design on behalf of CRG. With me tonight, I have Frank Nakunis, sitting right behind me. And what I'd like to do is kind of answer a few questions that came up at the last meeting. We had a couple of things that came out of our Conservation Commission meeting earlier this week on Monday that I think provide some interesting and actually pretty beneficial changes to the plan. And then my understanding is also there are your traffic peer reviewers on board. Unfortunately, Mr. Dirk wasn't available this evening, neither were any of his colleagues at his office, so we don't have him here. But having read through the traffic peer review, I'm pretty comfortable with a lot of the things that may come through, and we'll have Mr. Dirk at the next meeting, and then we'll go from there, I guess. So I do have the advertising fee right there. You had mentioned that. So perfect. That is an advertising fee. We're not exchanging checks. There's nothing funny going on there.
Yeah, we're, for the record, just a difference in the amount that had to be corrected, so we'll check in with the new.
So again, just to remind everybody, it's been about a month since we've been here. We are still waiting on, I believe, one more peer review. The stormwater peer review hasn't come back yet, but we do have the traffic one, and we have one for the notice of intent. Doesn't really have too much to do with you folks, but so 2 out of the 3 are back. Still waiting on that last one. Up on the screen right now is just where we had last left off. We had talked about a lot of various things on this site plan, not only how traffic functioned, but how the internal site itself functioned, some of the stacking along the driveway. I believe there was a few questions about that I'll address tonight. But one of the first ones was the last meeting, we talked a little bit about a potential for a left turn lane. So we went back and we looked at that, and actually the site can accommodate that quite well. We put a left turn lane in. The stacking that came out of the intersection analysis in the original traffic study showed very minimal amount, but we still put in about 150 feet of stacking potential on the left turn lane after you get through the taper. So in the full true width turn lane, you got about 150 feet before you turn into the driveway. As you can see up here, we match back in right when we get up to Old Lackey Dam Road, match back into the existing. The other interesting thing was this fits, and for those of you that are familiar with that area, you know the pavement's actually pretty wide out there. This fits all within the current pavement. So it's a striping exercise at this point, and it works pretty well. We did end up doing a minor change here coming in because we're going to have the trucks right there. As we pull them around that corner, the trailers drag a little bit, so we pulled the nose of this island back just a bit. And what that ended up doing, that widened this abutment by about 5 feet. So we talked with the Conservation Commission about that on Monday. Showed them the 5 foot widening there. If you've been following that process, you may also know that DEP had come back and said this should be called a limited project, which basically means minimize the impacts, but what you would normally be held to for standards are a little bit more relaxed as long as everything is held to a minimum. So we're in pretty good shape on that aspect, I think. So left turn lane, not a problem. That will be in the final plans. We also had there was a question about if we're going to have any kind of a guard shack or control up here, how much stacking and what would happen on that driveway, especially during the peak morning hours and the peak PM hours when the majority of not only employees but also cars and trucks are coming in as well. So we have about, if we have a control point right here, we have about 700 feet once you turn off of Gilboa. This is designed for what's called a WB67 truck, which is really it's the 53-foot trailers that you see on the highway, the big ones, and they usually have the sleeper cab, so it's the longest trucks. Those things are generally about 75 feet or so in length. Some of the newer ones I think are a little bit longer, but not significantly longer, but 75 feet is the big size. So that's about 8 or 9 trucks that can stack there if they go just bumper to bumper. The reality is in the AM peak hour, over that course of the hour, we're projecting about 11 trucks turning into this facility, and in the PM peak hour, we're projecting about 5 trucks. Those control points, typically what they are, especially with national tenants, that truck driver comes in, he already knows he's going to report to door 43, wherever that happens to be. And he's stopping at that gate, and he's just asking the guy, 43, do I go straight or I go right? Where am I going? And then that's, so there's not, it's not a 20-minute check-in for these guys. They're in there, 30 seconds to a minute, and then they're gone. So we're not, even if all those 11 trucks arrived at once during that morning peak hour, they're processing through there, and as I said, we can stack 7 or 8, or 8 or 9 rather, on that driveway without a problem. As far as the cars coming in, when the cars come in, they really don't stop at that checkpoint. They're going to the employee parking lot. Go back to that site plan. So they're coming in here and they're going right into this employee parking lot. They don't need to know where to go. They go in there. It's the same people every single day. This is not a retail operation where you've got visitors coming from far away to go shopping somewhere. The same people every day. They're getting in there. So I don't think there's going to be a big problem with stacking out onto Gilboa. We're not showing any queues coming out that way. And I think, once we get through some of the traffic comments and talk about post-operational monitoring of traffic, I think we'll see that there's not too much of an issue to worry about there. We also talked about the view. Somebody asked about the view on Charles Street, I believe. And before I get into this discussion, I will tell you that, and I will confess a little bit, I went through there before I came here tonight. Traffic coming out of Boston was very light this evening. I got out here a little bit early. So I drove down Charles Street a couple of times just to look through to make sure these pictures that we took, which are off Google Earth, are actually indicative of what's out there. One of them is not. One of them is not even close to what you really see out there. And that's the one right at the intersection of Charles and Northeast Main Street. But the section that we had prepared, as you can see, it's a very long section. It's the one that goes right across the top of your screen. What you're looking at is you're looking across the existing solar facility that's out there, up towards the existing gravel pit. We selected 3 locations, one right at that intersection that I mentioned, that really may not be correct what I'm about to show you. One right down here, about a little bit further down the street, but kind of takes a look back up towards the facility. The picture I've got on here is actually pretty similar to what's out there today. And then another one down here, and the reason we selected this one down here is that if you look on the aerial photographs over the years, there's a cut that comes right through the tree line there. And we thought perhaps that maybe there's a view corridor through there. There's not, but...
Question, that's the old Verizon or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a
The
fence.
easement there?
There's a fence and a gate in there.
Yeah.
Power station there.
Yeah. And because you can't really see the pictures on this, so I kind of blew all these up.
Okay.
So this is the one right at the intersection of Charles and Northeast Main Street. This photograph was taken in the fall. If you go out there right now, there's actually a really clear view shed right up into the site. You can see the piles. And on the back side of that solar facility, between the solar facility and the gravel pit, there's a row of, I think they're just arborvitaes that look like they're there.
Yeah.
You can see those clear as day. So I think what we ought to do is we ought to amend our plans, and we've got about 15 or 20 feet between the property line and where our trailer parking is. And we've done this on some other projects very similar to this in the past. We'll put in a double row of spruce trees, not white pines, the spruce trees. So you get pretty much the full coverage. The white pines, you put those in after about 5 or so years, the foliage starts way up here, and you just got a trunk, and you see right through them. So we'll do the spruces, and I think that'll be a pretty good block. And typically, we spec those at 8 to 10 feet at date of planting. So it's not, we're not putting in the little sprigs that'll take 20 years to grow. So 8 or 10 feet, and like I said, it's a double row. The reason for that is it just, as you get gaps, especially for the first 5 or 10 years, that double row helps fill that in. So you go down to that second point. This one's pretty accurate. That's kind of what you see.
Yeah.
You can, in this photo here, you can see some of the panels, but you really can't see through it too well. You go down to that last one where you see the Verizon cut is. That's it. You can't see anything.
No.
So that's blocked completely. But I did want to clarify that first photo. It was remarkably different from what we had on this presentation deck to what I actually saw out there today. So,
So will those plantings help with any of the sound, or most likely will?
what's actually going to help with the sound is the fact that we're down lower.
Okay.
So the absolute best sound barrier in the world is earth.
Yeah, no, agree. No, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
So that's what's really going to help.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And then, so Monday night, we were at Conservation Commission, and we had just gotten the notice of intent comments. I hadn't really had a chance to go through, so it was more just a general discussion than trying to address a series of comments. And one of the things that was discussed and brought up was, we're kind of respecting the buffer over here, and we did a good job staying out of the 100-foot buffer. We got into this floodplain a little bit, but given the size of the project, it should do better, really should do better. It was noted that we do have, I think it was 651 parking spaces, and your bylaw requires 590, so we are a little bit overparked. So we left that meeting. I didn't really talk about any changes at that point, but then the next day, we kind of looked at it in our office and said, all right, what can we do? Our philosophy, and as well as CRG's philosophy, is, let's give the community the best project we can, still meet the project goals, but do what we can and see where we get. So we started with that. We had an impact of 8,133 square feet. We were proposing about a 9,900 square foot compensation area. Same thing with the volume. We increased the volume on the compensation. So this orange was the compensation area. We started playing around with some of the parking, and what we came up with was the ability to actually shift that road over a little bit, still maintain, enough parking. We end up with about 611 parking spaces as opposed to 590, what you require. So we drop about 40. We relocated some of them to help us pull that road back. And so this over here on the left of your screen is what the layout looks like. But more importantly, once we do all the off-grading, you get this one over here on the right. So not only do we still stay out of the 100-foot buffer to Gilboa Pond, now we're out of the floodplain as well.
Good.
So we've kind of pulled back from those impacts. We are getting to a little bit of a steep grading section in there, but it keeps the toe out. And more importantly, the toe doesn't go right up to that line. It's set back about 5 feet, so we can still, we have a design feature on our steep slopes that we put some riprap right at the toe, kind of helps erosive velocities coming down off of steep slopes. So we have plenty of room to get that in. We still have room to get the erosion control in. And then one of the things that we're going to commit to is also installing orange snow fence, orange safety fence, anytime we're within about 150 feet or so of those natural resource areas. So we haven't told, well, now I've told part of the Conservation Commission that, but we haven't told the Conservation Commission that yet, but that's going to be part of our response.
What's the purpose of the snow fence?
Just to make the contractors aware you're getting into an area that you probably shouldn't be. And it's really to mark the limit of work. And a lot of times, people will go out and they'll just hang some flags in some trees or something, little flags that big. The contractors don't always see those. So if we put in the 4 to 6 foot snow fence when we're getting into sensitive areas, they see those and they know where they are.
It's only for construction, during construction?
Only during construction. Yeah. Then after construction's done,
Yeah.
we get a certificate of compliance, we pull that back out. So it'd come out about the same time the silt fence would come out. Otherwise, it looked
Yeah,
kind of ugly.
Why do you leave it there all year?
Happy to leave it up, but I wouldn't recommend it. So that's really the bulk of what I wanted to talk about. So it's really, like I said, it's a response to some of the questions that came up last time. Still working with conservation and waiting for the final peer review, which we'll see what happens with that.
If you could go back one slide to where you show the screen of the pit underneath, the colored one. You just had it.
Oh,
2 seconds.
oh, that was my questions and
I mean,
comments.
that is so telling to look at that, and I just want to say from a planning standpoint, to not take down an entire forest, and that just by, it is what it is, putting it on the sand pit is just brilliant, so, in all regards.
It's a unique site.
It is a
And,
unique site, yeah.
You know,
Good.
Through the chair, on the inlet, on the road coming in, single lane, 2 lane. Will cars like be able to go by one and the trucks will be at another gate, how's that?
no, it's single lane all the way through, yeah. Really, the main reason for that is because we are coming across the river. We are in that 200-foot riverfront area, so we really have to keep it as narrow as
I
possible.
didn't know how to look at the shack going in, if
Yeah.
the cars were gonna, like you said, they don't really have to stop, instead of them sitting there.
Yeah, no, they'll just cruise right into their parking space, but you're right,
Well-
if they are behind a truck, then they are going to sit
Right,
behind the
not
truck
sit
for.
there, That's what I mean, okay.
Yeah, yep, yeah. If this was, if we didn't have the natural resource buffers and the riverfront area there, yeah, this is probably an area where we would put double lanes going in, but,
Going in,
yeah, unfortunately, got to narrow it down.
Do you want to do comments from the peer review at all with traffic? Do we want to wait on that, or?
Mr. Chairman in this case, right now.
I don't know who's,
Excuse me?
You got this.
Sorry, our consultant is on the line. He did conduct his peer review. Sam, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about the
Please stop
review you
sharing.
conducted?
Yes, yeah, my name is Sam Ofeado, BSC Group, and we reviewed the traffic report. It would have been good to have an us around so that, these comments, go straight to them since they put the report together. But overall, I think we think the traffic report was done appropriately. There were a few concerns that we had, we tried to do mostly with, let's say, I think one was, if you can put back up the one showing the side drive at Gilboa Street. There was a question that we had, because I think in the report, it talked about one that all the trucks are going to be headed towards Gilboa Street. And the question we were asking was, what measures are they going to put in place to ensure that, one, the trucks will head, towards Gilboa Street instead of the other driveway. And then two, I think it was also stated that they would make a right turn. And we didn't see anything in the plans to indicate how the trucks will be told to take that right, as opposed to making a left on Gilboa Street. So that was one of the issues that we wanted the proponent to clarify. Yeah, so at this location, how they were going to make sure the trucks take a right to start with and not head left towards the center of town. So there will need to be some clarification on how they're going to do that. And that was one of the concerns that we had. The other concern that we had was the intersection of Gilboa and North Street. And I think that location is a three-way stop. And it has more crashes. I mean, the crash rate, the way they calculated it shows that we have a higher crash rate than the district, the Mass DOT average. But I think the proponent offered to do a road safety audit. And yes, it might be an existing problem, but if the building with the development of this magnitude, then I think what we're recommending that it should be something more specific than that, doing an audit and preparing some short-term improvements for the site. But it's really the prerogative of the planning board to, whether you're going to demand more, at that location, maybe look at the signal warrant analysis to be done. But that was something that we're highlighting. And I think similarly, there was also North Street and I believe that was Davis intersection as well, where they offered to do a study, and then prepare.
Yeah. Can we mute that?
Okay.
Sorry about that, Sam.
Okay.
You can continue.
No, that's okay. No, so I think Don said at the meeting, I think at North Street and in Davis as well, there was an offer to put together functional design reports and concept plans and be given to the town. And the question is, who is going to fund the construction or anything at all? So there should be something more specific, on the part of the proponent as to these things in terms of the mitigation and what needed to be done. We also talked about, there are a lot of these developments going on, and yes, we use the standard IT rates to do the traffic analysis. But what we think we have enough of these warehouses around us. Maybe they should consider looking at some existing facilities and actually measure their traffic coming out of those places, so that it's like getting some data to verify the assumptions that they make that as to how many trips going to really be coming out of this facility. So that was one of the recommendations that we had in our report. Let me see. I think for the most part, we put the recommendations in there. They did follow what needed to be done. The traffic volumes were low, so they bumped it up as they should, and we definitely agree with that. And I think there are a whole lot of other projects coming in place, but there are no commitment to do any mitigation. The other thing too is pedestrian access. And that is really, it could be the town policy. The town that I live in, I know they really don't do a whole lot of sidewalks, etc. But I don't know, there's an existing sidewalk on the portion of Bilboa Street, and I'm not even sure it's accessible. Maybe the crosswalks have the appropriate ramps and all that. So those are things that I think that the planning board should consider. And is there anything that could be done to also improve the pedestrian access, along the Bilboa Street, as part of mitigation coming out of this project or other projects? Because maybe encouraging people to use those sidewalks to access the site. There might be people in the vicinity of the site who will be working there potentially and then using those sidewalks. So that was something that, I was just looking at the aerial and I thought there would be some of the improvements that potentially the proponent can look into. But other than that, I would say those are the main points that we highlighted in our study, on our review of the study. So if there are any questions, I can throw them, or I can come back when Vanessa is on the next time.
Yeah, they said
Thank you.
they'll definitely be on the next meeting.
Have you guys spoken with the other project going on with the improvements that they're doing at the Gilboa and North Street intersection?
Not to
'Cause I
my
know that
knowledge.
they've
Jeff may
proposed
have.
some improvements to that intersection,
Yeah.
so.
No, we can check.
Chair, I mentioned that last
Yeah.
meeting, to get a hold of them or find out through the records from the tri-town. Because there was many improvements already being taken care of, worked out, and hammered out for that area, like Jake's saying. So before we get going too deep, I think that should be known first and then go from that.
And maybe before the next meeting, get those two peer review, just so they he has an understanding of what's going on too
Yeah.
at that
And
intersection.
that's the Scanal project you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Board, any other questions with, through the pier?
Did you address this letter?
I did not, I don't think I,
Maybe we could read that into the record for the concerns. He's a member of the conservation.
a lot of reading. Okay, I'm just gonna read, there's a letter that was submitted, we're gonna put into record with this project, from Mark Munjum, entitled CRG Distribution Center at 105 and 123 Gilboa Street, Northeast Main Street.
Mr. Chairman, I did pass the information off to the applicants today.
Okay.
So that if the items need to be addressed or answered, they'll be able to do so.
Okay. Mr. Monroe, do you have any comments or questions with the project and what's been submitted?
I don't at this time. I think the project's moving along nicely. I will say that at about 6:30 today, I did receive that third review, and I'll pass that off to you guys. So it did just...
I probably won't
just
be able
come
to
in before I
respond to
sat
it
down.
tonight.
Yeah, so I don't expect a response this evening, but it did come in today, so
Okay.
we'll be able to move forward.
And do you have any responses to what was said, or do you want to wait for your traffic engineer to go over them?
Yeah, let's wait for Jeff to come over.
Okay.
To respond to those. I think that would be a better idea.
Okay.
Just because some of the things, the improvements at Gilboa Street and North Street, he should speak to that. As far as how we make the trucks turn right, we're going to have some signage and the way the geometry is on that. But we'll respond to his peer review as well in writing and just make sure everything's all set with both sides.
And this is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience have any questions with this project?
The zoning board, the concerns.
Okay. And there was another letter submitted, and going to put into the record with the project. Just to zoning board. They just have comments of concern about the lighting and concern about noise. And that was from the zoning board, Douglas zoning board. Were you able to circulate that one?
I believe these will all be addressed as
Okay.
we go along through our standard process anyway.
Okay.
But glad to know that those are their similar comments.
Is there anyone online that would like to speak to this matter? Seeing as none, board, any further comments, questions?
To the audience.
Yeah.
Just on reading the letter and some of the comments, things I think we're starting to discuss, but they're pretty legitimate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very much so.
I think they're mostly,
You're working on a sound study as well?
We do have a sound study underway. I believe they actually just pulled the receptors on either Monday or Tuesday,
Yeah,
so they've been
okay.
sitting out there for about a week.
Awesome.
so what was expected.
So they'll put that all in a study and a report, which obviously we will submit. Go from there.
All right. Probably continue this to the next meeting, fine, or?
Yeah, did you want me to respond to any of these, this first letter that came through? Or, I can prepare a written response if you want. I can speak to him this evening or whatever is your pleasure.
I have no problem if you want to speak to them.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I
Do
think
you have answers for all of them to specifically address those concerns?
I think I've got answers for just about every single one of them, yeah. But we can go through and we'll see what's left afterwards, and we can do a written response to that. So
That sounds good.
the first, so there's looks like there's 5, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll just call it 5 sections in here. So the first section talks about the impervious surface and how the site's a former sand and gravel pit. As such, the soils are generally well-drained, and the site has contributed to the underlying aquifer. I should probably put these graphics back up as well. This may help. Go with that.
Is it in the aquifer map? This?
Overlay?
It's,
I don't,
no, we're not really in the overlay, but it does, I mean, when you have permeable soils like this, it still gets down into the groundwater regime, so.
correct, but we don't have any town wells there.
Right. So It goes on to say, it's my understanding that the proponent intends to offset the impervious surface with below-ground infiltration and detention basins. Issues I'm concerned about and feel should be addressed include permeability of the soil under the proposed infiltration systems. We do have a whole slew of test pits and actual geotechnical borings in and around all of those areas throughout the site. In both the site plan review application book, as well as the stormwater management report, the full geotech report is in that, and it has all the boring logs and everything. And if you review those, what you'll see is basically what's been being mined out of there continues on down until they hit bedrock. And in a lot of places, they were hitting bedrock 30 or 40 feet further down from where they were. The only exception to that rule is up in this corner right here, as it comes across. I guess that would kind of be the southwest corner. North goes over to the left of the screen. So this corner here, but that's because if you recall before when I talked about the grades, the existing grades over there are probably about 15 to 20 feet above where our floor is going to be. So just the amount of excavation we got to do there. So we get down close to the bedrock in that area. The depth of the soil and the distance to the groundwater, there's information relative to that also in the geotech report. If you look at the boring and the test pit logs, it talks about where they actually hit water, and he's got, on each one of them, they've labeled depth to water on the logs. In general, what we found is that in this area here, below our system, not below where we're proposing to end the grade, but below the system that we're proposing, we've got another 10 feet of soil before we hit groundwater. Over here to the east of the building, we have a subsurface system here, as well as the basin, the open air basin right there. In this spot, we're 7 feet above the groundwater, and again, that's at the bottom of our system. And I lost my pointer. There it is. As we get closer to the building, we're actually about 12 feet above the groundwater. And again, bottom of the system. And then finally, to the west, bottoms of those systems were about 7 feet, a little over 7 feet above the groundwater, we believe. That's only because he never hit the groundwater. So we're just going to say whatever the bottom of his test pit was, we'll call it groundwater, call it good. Mass DEP standards are 4 feet. So at 4 feet, you don't even have to do any groundwater mounding. They allow you to get within 2 feet of the groundwater if you do the groundwater mounding calculation. And that's really just to make sure that whatever you're putting in there for infiltration, you have to do this if you were doing a septic system as well, but we're not. This is stormwater infiltration, so whatever you're putting in there doesn't raise that groundwater up into the bottom of your system and somehow either cross-contaminate groundwater because it doesn't have the time to filter out, or it doesn't slow down the rate that they're supposed to empty these systems, which is 72 hours. So we've actually looked a lot at that. And then he was concerned also about the location of the infiltration areas. It's easiest to locate them on the low end of the site, but in doing so, much of the water will likely end up in the Mumford River, not in the aquifer. Consideration should be given to spacing the infiltration areas through the site to maximize the opportunity for water to get into the underlying aquifer. We've actually, for this project, this site runs from a high point over here on the right-hand side of this building. And the lowest point is in here. And that's how this gravel pit's been developed. It's over the years, as this has been excavated, this has always been the, I keep losing my pointer on my screen here. This has always been the low end. So runoff has always gone down there and percolated into that end of the site. When we first started laying out where we wanted to do drainage and how we wanted to make this work, 2 factors came into mind. One, the amount of excavation we were doing on the right-hand side of the site, where the grades are higher, and 2, the fact that what's been happening over the years since this gravel pit's been in operation, we were just trying to mimic that. And that's really why we chose where we chose to put them. We don't have to dig holes in the ground. As we're filling that end of the site, we put our systems in as we bring everything up. So it's a very convenient way to do it, and it also happens to mimic what's been going on for many, many years out there.
Question for you.
Sure.
So when you put your systems in, so from the bottom of your system to the top of pavement, what's the average?
From the bottom of the systems we have proposed right now, they're 15 feet deep inside. And we're only doing that because of the way we can construct them. So to the top, from the top of those systems to the pavement is about another 3 to 4 feet. So roughly 20.
Yeah, and you've got 10 feet of, they said on at least the minimum 10 feet.
Yeah, they're sitting on granular fill as we come up. I am going to throw this out there. We may not do it, but we may. We are going to look to try to value engineer some of those. As you know, all construction materials right now are just, they're just insane what's going on with them. So we may try to swap those out for different types of systems, but it would still be the same thing. They'd still be underground infiltration systems. Yeah. His next comment was on traffic. To the extent possible, traffic to and from the proposed facility should go towards Route 146, not overburden North Street and downtown Douglas. We couldn't agree more. And we are open to any suggestion you want to keep trucks off of that end of Gilboa Street, keep them going through downtown Douglas. We'll obviously, I think we committed last time to preparing maps for the drivers. We can do signage. We can do anything you want, that's legal for us to do. We can't stand guard on Route 16, but short of that, we're more than happy to do it. It just makes much more sense to keep them on the highways. That's what the highways are for. Light pollution, one thing I especially like about living in Douglas is the dark night sky and the ability to see stars. The number of new distribution centers proposed and under construction in the area, I fear the darkness will be lost. We need to insist this facility do what's necessary not to contribute to light pollution overtaking this area. If we were having this conversation 10, 15, even 20 years ago, I'd say this is an incredibly difficult topic to address, because back then you used to have the metal halide lights. Some people refer to them as the yellow ones or the white ones. What are you using, the yellow ones or the white ones? They're all white now. The reason they're all white ones now is because they're all LED fixtures. There's very few of these types of developments that are being done with anything but LED fixtures. The beauty of LED fixtures is they're focused right down to the ground. When we get off on the edges of the properties, we often put back shields on them just to make sure they don't go, over property lines or in unintended areas, but in the parking fields, they're still just the LED fixtures that shoot down. There also is a thing called dark sky compliant. And years ago, several groups got together and issued some dark sky guidelines. And really what that was to do was to very simply address his comment, I fear the darkness will be lost. We had all these areas all throughout the country, not just here in New England, but all throughout the country, where you would just suddenly see this glow in the horizon. People were trying to put an end to it. With these new LED type fixtures, I think they've gone a long way to doing that. It's pretty remarkable at the change in that. So every single light on here will be an LED fixture pointed down at the ground. Open space. So this comment's a little bit longer, but what he talks about in general is there's a big building here, there's a lot of asphalt and pavement, and it doesn't look like we're providing any open space besides the natural resource areas and the buffer zones. He's looking for trails. He saw parking for over 600 vehicles. It's a lot of workers that need an outlet from the warehouse. There should be dedicated open space, picnic areas, and trails to connect the pond to the river as part of the plan. What is the developer proposing? We've been focused on this very view of the project all the way through our review here. There's still quite a bit of land that is not being developed as part of this. It was pointed out to me, and correctly so, on Monday night, a lot of that is in Uxbridge, across the town line. That's true, but it's still an open part of some of this land. As far as walking trails, picnic areas, things like that, we really don't have anything proposed for that. This is not the type of facility that is looking for, I mean, they wouldn't be utilized. We'd put them out there, they wouldn't be utilized. These facilities are also not a real good place for the public to be just wandering around. A lot of cars, a lot of trucks. Yeah, it's just not a public open space kind of.
Can I ask, do you have a outdoor picnic area for the employees to sit outside in, like a treat area somewhere that you can?
Well, we haven't programmed that in because we don't know who the tenant will be. Sure.
Right.
A lot of tenants do have.
That will be developed later.
Yeah,
normally.
a lot of tenants do have those requirements. I'm doing a project in a different part of the state, and there was a national tenant just announced, and as part of their design package, they do have, it's about a 3/4 of an acre area that's for tenant break, or employee breaks, and it's just that exact thing. They want amenities in there, they want
I'm thinking just,
Yeah.
at some point, the new developer, the new user, end user will put in a patio and some trees and some planters, and that's
think you're right.
it. People just want a relief from the inside. I get what this guy's asking,
Yeah.
and that could be that. And
Yeah, that would absolutely be that.
Yeah.
But again, we want to know who the tenant's going to be and what they want, and when they
Right.
figure that out,
Yeah.
then that's what they'll get.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. Yeah, and there's limited disturbance what you're doing anyways with the sand pit there, so.
And then the last question was, if delivery vans and trucks are to be used, where will the fueling occur and how will it be controlled? This is not a delivery station. And I remind people of that on facilities like this. Because the big concern is that, wow, look at all those parking spaces. It's got to be those little Amazon vans creeping in and out. That's what it's got to be. It's not. So.
Thanks. So next meeting?
And I guess that's all I have for this evening.
Through the chair, on the fueling, the only fueling that I could ever see going on would be the yard jockeys, the dump trucks. Even then, normally they have a service come in.
Yeah, I don't think it would be him. Yeah, with a truck, right?
There's the
A
yard
mobile.
jockeys for moving the trailers
Yeah.
over. But normally that's an outside source. No fuel on, no fuel on the site. Come in and then fill the trucks as required.
Next meeting.
Time.
May 12th.
May 12th.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to continue to May 12th, 7 PM.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Zwicker, second by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor? Aye.
I just need to sign it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Item number 42. Next item on the agenda is the 7:15 PM public hearing, Richard Corkin, application for accessory apartment, 142 Monroe Street. In accordance with Massachusetts General Bylaws, Chapter 48, Town of Douglas Accessory Apartment Zoning Bylaws, Section 3.3 and 9.3, the Douglas Planning Board is holding a public hearing on the application for Richard Corcoran regarding an accessory apartment special permit. The property location is 142 Monroe Street, Assessors Map 192, Parcel 12.1, Douglas, Mass. The public hearing is being held on Thursday, April 28th at 7:15 PM in the Douglas Municipal Center Resource Room, 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and
new
place
house.
designated. Visit www.douglas-ma.gov for the agenda and Zoom information. A copy of the application is available for review during regular business hours in the Douglas Community Development Department, 29 Depot Street, Douglas. I have a quick question. This accessory apartment is 120 square feet.
I'll make a motion to open.
Motion made by
For the
Mr.
hearing?
Schultzberg,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is someone presenting for this?
Here we go.
Good.
So I guess my main question, the 120 square feet.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to put for square footage
Okay.
because it's part of the house. It's not in addition to the home. I don't even really consider it an in-law apartment.
Okay.
It's just part of the building itself.
Through the chair.
Okay, who suggested to have an in-law application, accessory application?
Madam Chair?
Yes?
May I just ask the applicant to introduce himself? And-
Sure,
Sure.
name and address.
My name is Richard Corcoran.
Thank you.
And address.
My home address? 42 Millville Street, Mendon.
Sorry, for the minutes taker.
Okay, thank you. So,
Through the chair.
yes.
It looks as though, and it's spoken about, the kitchenette is the main.
The
piece
kitchenette
to
is,
this.
yes.
And the kitchenette is likely the 120 square feet, I imagine 10 by 12. And that's, so he's trying to be upfront, and that's part of a new house, it looks like. The clients want to make sure that they can have this apparent kitchenette.
That is
as
correct.
part of this
And
project.
that's how I figured the square footage.
And the person will just utilize one of the bedrooms that are there. So that's,
Yes.
you're not looking for a whole suite.
That is correct. yes.
I got it.
No different
Yeah, I
than somebody
guess,
wanting
how are
two
you,
kitchens in there.
how are you
Correct, yeah.
triggering the accessory apartment special permit?
May not.
Is it, I guess,
There's no division of the space and, sir, name and address.
And Fraser, building commissioner. He came in with the application for the new home, and with that, if you look at it, it's not just a kitchenette, it is a suite upstairs and down, there's a bedroom, there's an entranceway for that area. It is set up as a in-law apartment.
More than 120 square feet?
It's more than 120
Okay.
square feet, you have the downstairs and the upstairs that are both combined.
Okay. So I'd almost like to
oh, because it's,
entertain a motion for no greater than the 900 square feet, not the 120 that's listed on the application. Because I don't really know how many square feet.
It's certainly less than 900 if you consider the bedroom downstairs,
So
yes.
No greater than.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Marks.
I'll second
Made
it.
the motion, second by Mr. Sokrat, to grant the accessory apartment special permit.
Yeah, they're not going to come near it at all.
Is there anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns regarding this application? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the motion to close the public hearing. Motion
Second.
made by Mr.
Second.
Marks, seconded by Mr. Schultzberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item, the 7:20 PM public hearing continued from April 14th, 2022, zoning modifications to Douglas zoning bylaws, amendments of section 10.0 definitions, new definitions of building elevation and building height, possible votes.
Madam Chair, the building commissioner has attended the meeting.
Would you like to come forward? Thank you. So you have a revision to your diagram.
Do I have a revision?
You do, yes.
The revision that was there is, I think it might have been a little misleading in the way that it was written as far as definition goes. The definition with the diagrams gives a definition of floors, not building height. In building, you've got a maximum height that you can go, maximum floor number you can go to residential building. A and B is defining whether a basement level is either a floor level or a basement level.
okay.
That's all A and B does. If you look at the paragraph below, building height, that is the definition of the overall building height requirements. We have a 35-foot height requirement. We have no way to measure it. So this gives a definition on how to achieve that 35 feet by averaging points around the foundation within 5 feet of the structure.
Does the board understand the diagram and the definition? Because when this is at town meeting, we need to be very clear. Are you presenting at town meeting, this definition?
I will not be there,
Oh, okay.
but it will be being
there.
presented, yeah.
Because if it's confusing for us, it may be confusing for the town.
I think what maybe one of the most confusing parts was the fact that the definition for the building height wasn't really in a bold print or highlighted, separated from this other. So there wasn't a separation between the two.
Okay.
My only confusion is looking at A, I assume that the curved line is the ground level,
That-
and in A, it's the basement below it, and then in B, it says first story above grade plane.
So A is for whether, if this was a ranch-type house, A would be the definition of whether the basement would be a floor level or a basement on a ranch-type house.
Okay.
B would be the definition as to whether the basement was a floor level or a second level above. It's talking about the level above.
What is the line, the swiggly line, that should be?
This is the average grade.
Okay.
That's the average grade.
So Where does it tell us that that means average grade?
Well, I did, the double-sided arrow is it's telling you first story above grade plane, and it's pointing for the floor to that grade level.
The box, the wording is pointing to the arrows?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, this comes directly out of the ICC book for elevations, so that's what we
Yeah,
use.
it's just the same exact picture, and
Right,
people
but,
tend to look at just the pictures,
I understand
not
that.
necessarily words.
If I
Right.
may, through the chair. So graphically, I mean, I understand what we're trying to achieve in a lot of towns. 35 is pretty common among a lot of towns for building to the ridge of the overall height. And some towns use the average grade every 12 feet. They will take it 10 feet, whatever, and they add that up and they divide it by the amount of sections, and that's how they get the average grade. A lot of towns also suggest, and I know we're not a lot of towns, and I'm still trying to learn that, so they would say 2.5 stories. And the half story is defined, which would be under an attic, low greater than 50% of the floor area below, to do, you know, a dormer up on the 3rd floor. And I'm not so sure, I mean, I get what you're saying, and we have to stay to the 35, but we don't have the 2.5 story thing. So you're trying to define that, right?
so here's the example that I can use. I got an application in. It was a garage under colonial, 2 stories with a 12-pitch roof. When measured out, scaled down on the drawings, it was 37 feet high.
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah.
It's not a buildable, you can't build it in town, utilizing what was written as far as 35 feet.
Right.
I'm trying to define it so that if you have a garage under colonial and you're at grade level for your first floor all the way the rest of the way around the building, you could build that building.
Right, I agree with that. I mean, that garage that might be 24 feet wide out of an entire perimeter of the house
Right.
would not substantiate enough above grade to use that against the 35 feet, which is what's happening if you, I agree with you, that it should not count towards the 35, but only a
It's not
small.
that it doesn't count towards the 35.
It count, but only a
but
portion of
average,
it,
right.
an average, right.
So, I mean, there's no definition in our zoning book.
Oh, you're right.
That
Right.
says,
Yeah.
what is the 35 feet? And I'll give you another example. There's a building that was built in the 1860s, I believe, right downtown. That building's 38 feet to the ridge. That's not a legal building by our zoning.
Pre-existing, but.
I understand
to
that.
the collar tie, so it's preventing people from having habitable space in the attic. So we could define it to the collar tie, and now you're underneath the 35.
No, because now your overall structure,
Not overall structure.
that's what the 35 is.
Right, but our definition currently is what?
35 feet.
Definition of height.
It says no building should be over 35 feet.
Do we have a height definition in our
No.
bylaw?
No.
Right, so-
That's what this is.
So, right, so if you have no bylaw, so I think this may be confusing at town meeting.
Okay.
I can, if we pull it
We're
back,
still trying to figure out, like, maybe one sentence as building height is the measurement, average grade within 5 feet from the structure, highest point of the structure. And maybe no diagram.
Right, but like I'm saying, these diagrams are not the average building height. This paragraph is how to get the average building height.
But if we just add the definition of building height, you as the zoning enforcement officer could enforce as your interpretation for building height.
yeah, if I
We
may.
have nothing now. We have
Right,
nothing
but
now.
these are not building height. So these two are not building height. These are determining floor height for a
Building
basement.
elevation.
On elevation for a basement. You're only allowed to go 3 stories on a residential house. This is all this defines. This one paragraph is the height of the building structure overall. So I don't, if you want to strike out the determining whether a basement is a floor level or not, I don't really care.
But just,
I mean, it could be,
if I can through the chair, why don't you just,
Well, we're
so they know
here
it's great.
because you care.
Yeah, it could write
We're trying
grade on
to
it.
clarify.
Yeah, kind of.
It's not that I,
They see that.
Right.
And
I mean-
I'm going through the chair.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, put the building height at the very top of this. And then right here, you put the word grade, so you know that that's the grade.
May I add to that? So unfortunately, our definitions are in alphabetical order. That's why one's on top of the other right now, and that's the font in which they read. So building elevations above, building height, just by alphabet. That's the only reason it's set up that way.
Okay.
'Cause-
But you know what I mean, have the building height, the first thing you see is building height, so you get the understanding of what it is. Then his diagrams show you what trying to be explained, and the squiggly line, like was brought up, just put a side note next to it, yard grade, just put grade on it, so you know that that's the grade that is being judged on.
just average grade, you know, use, I like your squiggly, the squiggly line means something. I mean, everybody can see that, that's
But
great.
just put a nomenclature there of what it is.
Right.
So the average person that opens it up and looks at it, you know, funny line going on.
But no greater than 35
Have
feet
a
to
note
the
on
average
what it
grade.
yeah,
is.
we
That's
have to
rich.
say this is going in front of the people in
Right,
this
and that's what I'm
town
saying, the
to be
nomenclature.
very clear what we're trying to accomplish.
So,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just through the chair, I think, Mr. Frazier is the building commissioner. He's trying to just put some definitions in there and guidelines around there that helps his job as well as help applicants come in. So, he's kind of vetted this and he's pulled it from the source. So as a reference, put in our bylaws to explain what 35 feet means and explain the measurements. So, I had a discussion with him after our last planning board meeting because I wasn't sure, again, where the definitions were, going one after the other regarding the elevations. But again, this is to assist him in his job, and I don't have a problem with it.
And through the chair, I concur. The only thing I'm asking is nomenclature, put definition, just a simple word, is all it is.
I would be in agreement with that, to put average grade, to denote that line as average grade. And I would like to see building height underlined, bolded out.
Right,
I had a
35 feet,
discussion with
right.
Matt today
Max.
with regards to that, and I did say, I'd like to see that before these, but he said because of the way that the book lays
If
out,
I
you
may-
can't get that in there.
If I may through the chair, the paragraphs don't help it. They don't help it. I mean, almost the diagram, if you had the 35 feet max to the average grade, from the average grade as calculated, then you don't,
These do not determine, they have nothing to do.
The paragraphs don't
with the
have anything to
30 These drawings have nothing to do with the 35 feet.
Two separate.
unless we add that in to it.
No, these drawings have nothing to do with the 35 feet.
What Mr. Frazier's saying is we
They're
have
just
two
determining
separate-
elevation.
Two separate definitions that we're looking at,
Yep.
one for elevation and one for height.
Correct.
This is for elevation.
Floor elevations is what
Instead of
these
calling it
diagrams
building
are.
elevation, we could call it floor elevation, and it'll end up at a different
Section.
section of the definition.
Yeah, but do we define like a 2.5 max story, a 3 max story? We don't define that. So why is this applicable? If we're trying to help with this garage like scenario, somebody has a garage, lower, under, and that's all they have.
Right.
I mean, that's not really going to count much towards the 35 feet if you take the average grade, because it might only be 10% or 15.
And that's in that paragraph definition?
Yeah, I don't get it.
That's where that's covered.
Yeah, I
That's
guess I
what I'm
don't-
getting at with that paragraph.
Yeah.
With these other two paragraphs, with the designs, has got nothing to do with the total height of the building. It's only determining floor levels.
But we don't, okay.
Okay.
So if we were to strike the building elevation and the images and just give you the building height definition, would that accomplish your mission of that 38-foot max?
35.
The person that is, because if they took the average ground elevation,
Right.
would that accomplish the issue that you're having
Yes.
with that 38?
That's what I'm saying.
And I don't know, so average ground elevation versus average grade elevation.
Does it say grade? I thought it
No,
had
it says
said grade.
ground.
It should be grade,
Okay.
the average grade.
Okay.
Then that's what I was
So
getting at, grade.
I would almost, just because we're having a little bit of, confusion with the diagrams, if that building height definition accomplishes what you're trying to achieve, and you can take it into your, you know, your duties as the enforcement officer, if I could just do the building height, I think that would pass through.
That's fine.
Okay.
I mean, these I brought into play because I have been asked 3 times by engineers
Right.
whether a basement is considered a grade, first floor grade level or not. And we had no definitions available for them.
But let's just say it's a walkout basement, so you have your definition saying that the average grade elevation within 5 feet, so they take all the grades, so say it's a walkout, so then they would be still okay
Yeah,
with the 35.
yeah.
Not necessarily.
No, that's.
Yeah,
not what it
well,
was.
yeah, if we're doing a
Side yards out of
walkout.
slope, though. If your side yards out of slope,
So,
you take the average grade, you're in the middle of that slope, which you're halfway in your basement before you start taking your grade.
and if you have a drive under
I'm talking about
garage,
the front, the average,
Oh.
mean grade.
Only from the front?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about all the way around.
Perimeter
So
of the
your
building.
average, you're 50%.
Right, but
but if you have a drive under garage,
Yeah.
right, and then you have a walkout, and then you have a slide yard that slopes up to the front, are you gonna be
That's
compliant?
gonna go into your calculation for mean
You
grade.
take your average grade all the way around to the height of the
Right.
building, and
That's
if you're under 35 feet, then you're all set.
It should probably be mean grade elevation.
Right, and that makes somebody
Versus
change the
average.
pitch of their roof, go to a hip, go to, the gable, relax it from a 12 to an 8 or whatever, so.
Build some stone walls, change the
That's right.
elevation,
Right, so you
whatever.
could, yeah, you could.
There's ways for them to-
manipulate the-
Right.
The landscape to get to your 35
Right.
very easily.
Right. But it's just a way so that when somebody says, well, so-and-so built a house over there, and I know it's over 35 feet tall. Right now, if it's over 35 feet at the garage end, they're over the height.
Yep.
Correct. So, so we're going with average or we're going with mean grade elevation?
It should be the average grade elevation
The same,
on points
Yeah.
around.
okay.
And we could add as measured every 10 feet along
No,
that,
it's 5 feet.
to get an average. Otherwise,
Yeah.
people just, what? Yeah,
Yeah, I think,
It's easy.
I think I'll entertain a motion to strike the diagrams and just keep the building height with a, revision of the average grade elevation on that definition.
and to help you, we should require, it's a simple calculation, but it should be on the drawing. I have to put the height over all the ridge and the average grade, and that's it. And that way, it's black and white to you. If somebody stamps it, it's them. Right? So, whatever.
Correct. I mean, it's just, I get permits in, and this is a question that, it's not the first time.
Correct.
If I look at the zoning book says 35 feet.
Right.
Straight.
So what are you going to
Straight
do?
35.
Send them
Yeah,
into
straight
a
35.
board meeting every time and say,
Yes.
make a
Well, I
determination?
don't think it happens too often, but, yeah, I think that,
Well, what I find they do, they don't put in from the top plate of the ceiling on the top floor to the ridge, and that is part of the height of the building.
okay. For another day.
Yep.
So,
So moved on that motion.
Before we do, I'm sorry, public comment and.
Oh, yes.
anyone have any questions or concerns regarding this public hearing?
Beyond what we have.
Seeing none. We have, I can do a motion to close after the vote. can't I?
Yep.
No?
Yep.
Yes, no? Robert's rules?
Just a question to the chair, to Mr. Fraser. Would it be helpful to keep the diagrams in, since you've been asked questions about that through 3 other?
I don't think it helps.
And we get to separate it then. You can't be in the same article, it's not gonna, if there's any confusion on town meeting floor, it's not going to move.
go.
Yeah,
I'd say,
that's what my point is.
If there's this confusion now, I would say I'd at least like to get, at this point in time, to get this 35 feet with the average grade elevation, and so that there's some guidance on the overall building heights.
Just saying average grade is important.
Yep,
Yeah, really.
fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, per Robert's rules, it would be appropriate to close the public hearing for public comment and then render your vote.
Yes,
You have it?
It is just this.
Where's the Robert's rule?
That's 17 years experience.
Good, we don't have Robert.
Any other?
No Robert on that.
Okay. I'm good. Thank you. Mr.
Want
Frazier.
anything else? No.
No,
Nope.
are you happy with that? Will that work?
Yeah, he needs that.
Simplify-
It's gonna
That's fine, as long as I get something in there so that I can answer people's questions when they're saying,
Yeah, he
how
needs it.
tall can I build this building?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by
Second
Mr.
that.
Schultzberg, second by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Schultzberg for the,
Strike the
Friendly
diagrams, yeah.
Well,
and change average ground elevation to average grade
great.
elevation.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg, seconded by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, can you please incorporate and move to approve and recommend favorable action at town meeting as part of that motion?
So moved.
Friendly
Second.
amendment by Mr. Zwicker,
Yep.
seconded by Mr. Schultzberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
7:30 PM public hearing continued from April 14th, 2022. Sutton Douglas Development Application for Definitive Subdivision, Mumford Road and 5 Forest Street. Okay, would you like to bring us up to date, name and address?
Sure. Madam Chair, members of the board, Wayne Bellick, Land Design Collaborative. I'm joined tonight by Tim Flynn, Flynn Build and Develop. He does have our presentation, which he's going to connect on screen. So once he gets there.
One second. Of course. Shut up.
So I think, Tim, what we'll do is we'll go right to where we were, you know, what's transpired since, where we've been since the last meeting.
Absolutely.
Probably the second slide.
Apologies. Zoom just shut down and is now updating. Sorry, everyone.
So we are looking to, Madam Chair, a couple items for discussion. As we indicated to the board, we would be looking to discuss traffic. Peer review comments have been discussed between both consultants.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. The audience can't hear you. Let's put your mic down towards you. Just,
Sorry, Mr. Zwicker, that we have to take.
Go right ahead.
no,
You got the.
Yep, we're good.
it's better to be heard and understood.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Much better.
You get the raw deal here. So again, Wayne Bellick, Land Design Collaborative, with Tim Flynn. So as we had discussed with the board, we were going to get into the peer review discussions and the responses to those. From the civil site side, we have received those, the comments. No deal killers, and we have prepared a draft of our responses. However, due to plan changes, in order for us to properly respond to them, we have to make the plan changes, which we're in the process of doing at this time. In addition to that, if you recall, Madam Chair, there was a discussion about the soil testing, and you had asked that we do it now, and that's what we're in the process of doing well as well. Started yesterday, went through the day today. It's going to wrap up tomorrow morning, testing all the stormwater basins. Graves Engineering is out there witnessing with our guy. So I wanted to bring you up to speed with that. So again, since our last meeting on the 14th, we had met with the Conservation Commission this past Monday night, the 25th. And again, like I just touched on the civil and traffic peer review comments, At the last meeting, there was a question by one of the board members about the light pole locations on the site. One of the abutters, I believe it was the Princes, that had raised the question as to where that was going to be. So we're going to be discussing that tonight. We'll also discuss the fire truck maneuvering through the site. There was a question on that. And we had selected a behemoth of a vehicle, which is a ladder truck, and we'll show how that runs through the site. And then we're going to discuss, ideally, waivers. We did discuss that. I think we touched on that the last time, but in order for us to make those plan changes and to be able to respond to the Graves peer review comments, we need some direction with the waivers, ideally. And then, in addition to that, as I said, we do have some discussions that probably at the next meeting that we can have with Graves Engineering. They weren't available for tonight. However, MDM is available to discuss the traffic, and they're up here tonight with Tetra Tech, and they're participating remotely. So Tim, if you could go to the next slide, please. So the question, as I said, regarding light pole locations, we have them located, probably hard to see, but we do have them. They show up as red dots on the plan, so Tim is showing them at various locations. We have one at the beginning of Road A out at Duval Road. We have one, a pair of them along Road A at the intersections of Road B on the opposite side of the street. There was, Madam Chair, there was a question by one of your board members about whether or not the community mailbox would be illuminated. That will be illuminated. In fact, it will be just right in front of that lamppost that's proposed at the second intersection of Road B. We have one at the intersection of Road C on the opposite side of the street and at the end of Road C. As we continue down Road A to Road D, we have one on the northwest side of that intersection, and then at the very end of Road A. We also have one, the one of most concern to the Princes and the folks up at Forest Street. We do have one located on the north side of the intersection. It's that red dot. Tim, can you zoom into that?
Absolutely.
That red dot with the little white thing in it is the proposed lamppost location. Tim, if you could go to the next slide, please. So this thing obviously is the behemoth. We looked at an E1 vehicle, the 100 aerial, a fairly large vehicle. Based on our discussions with the public safety officials, again, the houses are going to be sprinklered, but in our discussions with the house public safety officials, they would look to have pumper trucks. So the vehicle that we're proposing here, as I said at the last meeting, is much greater in scale than the pumper trucks. So we wanted to run that through the site to provide you folks with some comfort. We ran it through, assuming the 24-foot pavement width, the plans that were presented, 24 feet on roads A and D, and the proposed 22 on roads B and C. So the first image shows the ladder that comes in from Duval Road, travels along Road A, all the way to the end, and back out to Duval Road. What I'd like to do, Tim, I know you have that ability to zoom in. If you could please zoom into the end of Road A so that the board can see the travel path of the vehicle, which is color-coded. So what you're seeing here is that the in green, that's the overhang of the body of the vehicle. What you see in red is the rear wheels of the vehicle as it maneuvers, and I believe there's a blue color in there, though I can't see it, that shows the front wheels as they drive. So as you can see, we're able to keep it within the pavement, make that turnaround in the cul-de-sac bulb. And Tim, if you could zoom out to the intersection of Duval Road. So with this, again, we could go up and down the road, Madam Chair, but it's pretty clear that it stays within its own lane up and down the road. So what you see here, again, the overhang of the body. So we have it coming in from the west side, taking the right-hand turn. The reason we did that is we wanted to show the most restrictive turn. If he was coming in from the left and going into that right lane, that would be a wide left. So tight right, wide left. So in this case, we're coming in with a tight right, and we've demonstrated that we're able to make that maneuver. Tim, if you could go to the next slide, please.
Neither town has this actual vehicle though, right?
I'm sorry?
Neither town has the actual vehicle.
I would doubt it. This thing is a
So you
beast.
did the maximum,
We did.
not what we actually have on here.
That's
Yeah, so
correct.
one of the questions that came up last meeting was, planning forward, right? So given the development that's happening on the outskirts of towns, whether it be, packaging facilities like the gentleman who was on before us, but as of right now, it is not in the arsenal of the fire department.
Okay.
So the next exhibit, Madam Chair, goes from Road A up through Road D out to Forest Street. So Tim, most critical is the intersection. So if you could zoom in to Road A and D, please. So as you can see, again, the restricted turn, it does make that maneuver, and then it corrects itself coming into the proper travel lane coming up the hill. Tim, if you could pan up the sheet. And so as it's coming out, it more than likely would go down Belvoir. So we show that vehicle exiting. Actually, this is the reverse. This is coming into the site. So coming in along Forest again, this is the most restrictive turn. It's more than likely coming up Belvoir, which would be a more generous of a turn. So we wanted to show the more restrictive turn and that the geometry of the intersection would support it. Tim, if you could go to the next slide, please. So this is Road A with the vehicle traveling along Road B and then circling back onto Road A. So once again, we have the vehicle. In this particular case, it is coming into the site, making that wide left-hand turn, traveling along the road, and then it circles back at the second intersection of Road B and Road A. And then we have the final presentation slide on this topic as being Road B along Road C, and then it travels out back to Road A. So in this case here, you can see once again it makes that turn around the geometry. You see on the traveling side of the lower side of the road on Road B, that's where it's coming into the site, takes a wide left, comes down, and then takes a tight right coming out. Tim, next slide, please. So that was it for the presentation. Are there any questions, Madam Chair, on the maneuvering of the vehicles?
So if I may ask a question.
Yeah.
We're still talking about 22s and 24s. I mean, we've not made any decisions?
Yeah,
We have.
a consensus of 22.
There was a consensus, but not, so it's not asked as a,
There is no regulation for the
Right.
width. I
okay.
wanted to give them an indication of which way we're going.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I spoke with the highway superintendent today on this, and he researched on Mass Highway, and he has no problem with the 22-foot wide for the rest of the remaining two roads.
Madam Chair, per Ernie's request last meeting, Mr. Mark's request last meeting, he also asked me to ask the fire department the same question. Okay with what's proposed for 22 on the side roads and 24 for the main pass.
May not have been it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Chair, I know that we discussed waivers. And if it pleases the chair, whenever you folks would like to do that, totally your call.
So, Mr. Benoit, anything indicating that we cannot vote on the waiver requested at this time?
several waivers here.
One seems to not apply. You have your test pit request.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we'll strike that one.
Thank you.
But I think for the applicant's planning, I don't see anything out of order to call a motion to grant these requested waivers or not grant them.
I have but one, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
6.2, curbs and berms. This kind of covers more than just, well, I would assume that we still want the curb inlets on catch basins, outlet control structures.
We typically, yeah, we
Okay.
typically request that.
And I kind of want to defer to Mr. Marks on where he feels that the grant is appropriate, especially when it comes to snow removal.
On which one?
In other, through the chair, Mr. Marks, in other subdivisions in town, where is granted a problem for snow removal versus where it's acceptable?
We've been in the past requesting that the granite curbing behind all the catch basins.
Yep.
And on the radiuses, coming in and out.
Is that?
If I can, through the chair, in here though, where I think it's gonna be a little bit tight, should we keep it Cape Cod berm instead of granite on the radiuses?
I don't have a problem.
That way there, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise you're gonna be cutting tires.
Yeah, I think the Cape Cod.
So, I mean,
I can go either way on that. Behind all the
catch
basins, I won't.
basins, through the chair, yes.
Agreed, agreed.
It's a definite, but I
Absolutely.
think, through the chair, keep the corners on the soft side, just in case. You'll have a curve, but it'll be softer than granite.
Yeah. And then they've got you've got country swales and open drainage.
I'm sorry?
You've got country swales and open drainage, so the Cape Cod berm's more ideal.
So we do have, yes, so through the chair, we do have, and I think to the point of the board, so we do have, we wanted to go with that. We do have off-road swales. We wanted to have the open swales, but as we said, some of the lid principles, we couldn't satisfy that one because of the topography and the soils. So unfortunately, what we do have is your conventional closed system. But typical of that, as we know, when we get these storm events, the more frequent storm events are fine with the inlet capacities of these catch basins. Once you couple that with what the board is suggesting, the granite gutter mouth, the open throat inlet, that really increases the capacity of the basin. So with respect to that, in terms, and I'm not sure if I answered the question, Madam Chair, but that would address any concerns of stormwater runoff in that area.
He was just saying that it would aid in the runoff versus the granite curbing. So you are going to make a friendly amendment to your waiver request to exclude the curb inlet for catch basins
That's correct.
request, and the waiver would remain for the all street intersections on the curve and extending 6 feet beyond the tangent.
That's correct. Thank you.
Board, anyone else before we?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I think it also calls for it around the cul-de-sac bulb, if I recall. I may have the wrong time.
Curves wherever the interior angle is less than 110 degrees. So I would exclude your waiver from all curb inlets for catch basins. So
Okay.
your waiver motion would include all the others,
Okay, thank
all
you.
others.
Thank you.
Through the chair, final prints are gonna show where the sidewalk and everything's gonna be, side of the road,
Yes, Madam Chair. Yep.
Okay, so we're striking the request for 4.2.3 on A13 other sheets. The applicant is completing the test pit, so they no longer need that request. And then excluding the waiver for curb inlets for catch basins. And I'll entertain a motion on that. If anyone would like to, with the amendment of the waiver request.
For a motion to approve waivers as discussed?
Yeah, as amended. Anyone?
I'll make that.
Mr. Schultzberg,
Second.
Second by Mr. Sokrat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair, and the board, much
So
appreciated.
we striked the test pits, and you will be required to install the granite curbs for the, behind the catch basins.
Correct.
Okay?
Thank you.
Clarify.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is there a waiver on the tree plantings? Okay, did we do that one also, or?
Yeah, that's 6.5.
All right.
Yeah,
It's
so,
6.5.
just to, so contents, alternative development scenarios, the grade at street intersections, curbs and berms, excluding the curb inlets for catch basins, sidewalks on both sides, and trees. Those were the granted waivers.
Thank you.
All right. Who required?
Oh,
Do you have something?
Just a question. So we talked about a lot of the traffic going through, coming off of Duval Road, but also then the traffic that's going to be coming out of the subdivision, whatever, 20% going onto the existing Forest Road and Bouvard,
Belvoir?
Yeah.
Belvoir Road and stuff like that. So is there any consideration for improvements on that or working with the highway department on any road improvements there?
So I would look to defer to Mr. Flynn on that question, Madam Chair. It's a good question, thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you for the question. We're open to the conversation. We have had discussions with Mr. Benoit about needs in that area. So happy to look into it further.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just to mention to the group, our traffic consultant has attended the meeting also. They did perform their review on this project and is available for questions or comments if you'd like them to make any findings here this evening.
Okay.
So through the chair, we do have, thank you, Mr. Benoit, we do have both consultants here. So however the chair would like to begin that dialogue, I'm sure they're ready to rock and roll.
Okay. Why don't
you.
we start with your consultant first on their findings for the, the answers that were left
Okay,
unanswered.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Courtney Sudak, Tetra Tech. Next slide, Tim. So MDN had a couple of technical related comments in regards to the analysis performed in the traffic study. One of them was in regards to the baseline traffic volumes. So at MDM's request, we ran an update of what the existing condition volumes would be if we applied a seasonal adjustment factor to bring the volumes to average season conditions and a factor for the COVID-19 pandemic effect on traffic volumes in the region. So we did an analysis and looked at Mass DOT seasonal adjustment data. In July, when the traffic counts were collected last year, is considered an above average traffic month by about 8%. So the observed traffic volumes at the 4 existing study intersections were reduced by 8%. And then we looked at the Mass DOT data as well as some information that MDN had provided in their comment letter in regards to a COVID-19 traffic volume adjustment. And Mass DOT has a mobility dashboard where you can compare any week since the pandemic began to a pre-pandemic traffic volume data for the same week in 2019. So for the week that we counted in July of 2021, we compared that to area count stations that
Ooh. You heard that.
So for the same, for a couple of the count stations, there's 2 count locations on the regional highway system in the region close to Sutton and Douglas, and those indicated that July 2021, the week we counted, was approximately 1% to 10% lower than the same week in July of 2019 before the pandemic began. MDM also had some data that indicated about a 20% reduction in 2020 compared to 2017 data. And so as a conservative measure, we applied a 20% increase to the volume observed, and this table summarizes the comparison for the AM peak hour and the PM peak hour. So as you can see, there's only a handful of trips difference in the overall intersection volumes for the study intersections. So the baseline volumes that were used in the traffic study were appropriate for use in even when you accounted for COVID adjustments. So next slide. One of the other comments MDN had was after the traffic study was completed, industry standard trip rates were updated by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. The ITE trip generation manual is the industry standard for estimating trips associated with single-family homes. So we just ran a quick comparison of what was estimated using the older ITE trip rates that were used in the traffic study and compared it to if we used the newer rates issued in September 2021. And as you can see, there's a negligible difference in peak hour trips and just a modest increase in the overall daily trips spread out over a 24-hour period. And MDM did not request that we update the analysis, but just for the record, in our response letter, we will be providing a summary for the future build condition, which is the future conditions with the project in place at all the study intersections. The levels of service will continue to be level of service A or better, which means minimal delay and well below volume to capacity. So MDM had also made some comments in regards to the site plan. Land Design Collaborative will be incorporating or accounting for those comments in the next round of plans. And MDM had also made some comments in regards to potential traffic mitigation measures at the study intersections. And the applicant is willing to work with the DPW to incorporate what the DPW sees fit as appropriate at those study intersections. And that's it for me.
Thank you. And Tetra Tech? Oh, is it MDM?
Robert, can you hear us?
Yep, this is Dan Dume with MDM. I don't know if there's a screen share, but I can put up our letter and quickly walk through what we had. Just need access. We need access through whoever the host is to be able to share.
Should be able to do it now.
All right. All right, there we go. Thank you very much. All right, so we had an April 5th letter to Tech. Mrs. Sudak went through most of the issues that they resolved. The first comment, study area, we agreed the study area is appropriate. Traffic volumes were collected at the correct time of day, so we had no issues with those. Comment 2 went through and said there may be a pandemic adjustment factor, but given the low volumes, there wouldn't be much of a change in the overall project findings, so we didn't need any further analysis, but Courtney went through those. Crash data, so we requested look at certain areas within the study area within both towns, potentially increase some safety near the subdivision roads and providing driver guidance. So it sounds like they're going to work with the DPW department to come up with a mitigation package on that. So we should be satisfied. We'll just have to review what they come up with. The project team, I think the civil is going to do a revised sightline exhibit on Duval Road just to make sure that The new swale along the front will remain low enough to provide adequate sight lines there. They're going to add the notes to the plans to keep all the sightline triangles not to exceed 2.5 feet in height, and then to clear the snow windrows to 3.5 feet. So I think we'll be able to meet those. We'll look at what they provide to us. They did a 7-year build out at 2% growth, so we concurred with that. The trip generation we concur with. The new 11th edition numbers are in the record now, so we agree with that. Trip distribution, we had no problems with the distribution. It was based on the journey to work census data. Overall intersection operations, we concurred with that. Level of service A, kind of minor delay. Everything followed industry standards. And we had come up with a list in number 10 for some speed advisory signs and other markings within Duval Road and some of the other roadways to enhance driver guidance and kind of increase visibility and awareness of the intersections ahead. So it sounds like the applicant is willing to do that. And then specifically for the within Douglas, we're looking at intersection markings and traffic signs at Birch Tree and Belvoir and Fairfax Way. Basically, the existing intersections out there have some awkward geometry and not much for pavement markings. For instance, most of the intersections have the stop signs on the opposite side of the roadway, so they may need some enhanced signs and correct locations, stop bars, maybe some markings, and maybe some like stop sign ahead type of signs to give guidance out there. And then the site access, we'll be reviewing the auto turn by the applicant. We just saw those tonight. It looks like hopefully it's favorable. Looked like it worked. We'll just have to review those in detail. But overall, it looks pretty promising. On the Sutton side, the Duval Road, Road A approach to Duval Road comes down to 4.75% grade. So we're recommending about 100-foot landing, 3% or less, especially in New England. It'll help safely stop at the intersection under adverse weather conditions. So they're going to look at that regrading exercise over there, and hopefully they can make that work. And then we're looking at stop signs and pavement markings at appropriate places within the subdivision, as well as the driveways going out of the site. So that's basically our findings. Overall, traffic study was very well done. The project is a pretty modest generator, so we just want to make sure that you can enhance some safety and sight lines out there are kind of the biggest concerns. And of course, the auto turn for any emergency vehicles trying to get in and out, make sure the fire department is happy with the width of the road and the accessibility. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have or clarify anything.
Thank you very much. Board, do you have any questions, concerns regarding the traffic? I think all the butter concerns were addressed. Okay. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments regarding this application? Yes, sir. Name and address, please, for the record.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Paul Mason, 59 Bluebell Road. I haven't heard anything talked about the swell of the vehicles and people in the campgrounds from May to October. It does go up by 4,000 people between Sutton and Douglas campgrounds.
Does the applicant want to address that, or do you want to reserve it for the next meeting?
So in terms of the swale, we'd like to, swale. Swale.
I think we briefly touched on the increase or the influx of traffic during the summer months, right, in a very early meeting.
Sure. So I would defer to Courtney for in terms of the traffic, but in terms of the hydro work put together by LDC, we're looking to discuss that with Graves at the next planning.
The hydro?
No,
No, he's saying The swell.
Swell.
I'm going to say it
Okay,
wrong.
It's all right. Courtney, could you address the influx of cars during the summer months with the applicant?
Yes, so there was no available historical data from Mass DOT for before the pandemic. Last year, restrictions were lifted, but we do understand from public comments that they believe there might be, higher traffic volumes when the campgrounds are fully occupied. So since we don't have data collection from the summertime when the campgrounds are in effect, I can't provide you actual values, but the intersections and Duval Road and Torrey Road, Mumford Road, Birch Street, and Mumford Street are all operating at level of service A operations, which is the best operations you can get. So we're confident that the increase in traffic from the campgrounds could be adequately accommodated in the few month period of the year where they're fully occupied.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Through the chair to the abutter of 59 Duval, did you mention that there's data available through CMRPC? Did I hear you say that?
This came from a meeting that was put on in the town of Sutton with all highway, fire, police, through a grant through Central Mass Regional Planning, and that was one of the aspects that came out of one of our problems that we had in the town, power generation, the swell in the summer with traffic. There was 10 areas that we had to submit back to the state as our biggest problems that the town had at that time. And that was maybe 4 years back, and our town planner can provide that information. I'll talk to them.
Okay. All right, we'll just follow up with that data from 4 years ago, from CMRPC.
So also through the chair, I apologize. I clearly misheard half of what you said, so I apologize. Fair.
Anyone else in the audience, questions or concerns regarding this hearing? Yes? Yes.
Mike Lacey, 18 Forest Street. As the project leaders discussed and showed us the fire engine going through from Duval Road. However, all emergency vehicles and traffic related to Douglas is going to come through one of either Fairfax Way or Duval, or Belfort, as far as an entrance. So the test should have included going through that area up through what you call, I think, Road C?
Road D.
Road
Yes.
D? Okay.
Through the chair.
Which would probably give a different insight, because through that area, and having lived there for almost 40 years, I doubt if you could really get 22 feet out of the majority of the roads through various reasons, either by the snow removal, moving part of the side roads off. Anyway, the road is not the size that is expected. And somebody mentioned the fact of the grade going down. Bring to your attention that in Fairfax Way, that is a big incline going down to Birch Road. And during the winter, and if you have bus pickups and all of those people from the new division is going to be dropping off their kids, you're going to have a number of cars there, as well as the fact of during the winter could be ugly. So I think my bottom line is the fact that there's a lot of factors outside of the development that has to be considered.
Through the chair, yes, we will get, we'll look at that coming up Birch through. So in speaking at one point to Mr. Benoit, I think just based on the geometry up there, the likely road, as I indicated earlier tonight in the presentation, that would be utilized would be Belvoir because of its width. Its alignment, this gentleman, Mr. Lacey, is correct in looking at Fairfax. Those were my observations as well, that coming into the intersection of Fairfax into Birch versus Belvoir into Birch, Fairfax is steeper. So the likelihood of them, because of the geometry and the width of Belvoir versus Fairfax, there's a straighter shot of Belvoir, so they'd more than likely come up Belvoir, and we can demonstrate that by providing an alignment through there as well.
Thank you very much.
To the chair, on that same subject, correct me if I'm wrong, Ernie, it did come out of Rydell and then go in that way, going into Road D, not going all the way down to Duval and then coming back. Probably, right?
Yeah, for emergencies. That's right.
Something would come in through Duval.
Yeah.
If anybody,
Yeah.
as a secondary town.
We probably go up West Street to Birch Street and into
Plus,
Village.
the applicant is buying us this vehicle also. It's the worst case scenario for fitting that they're using.
Yeah, it's an oversized.
Not an actual vehicle that we have.
Yeah, you could probably talk with the fire chief. I mean, all the years I was on the fire department, we never had any problems getting the truck in and out of there. But if you want exact measurements for
Absolutely.
intersections and widths and stuff like that.
Yeah, those are on record.
All our trucks have been up there at one time or another anyway, so.
Thank you.
Yes, miss. Name and address, please.
Lynn Rozak, Lynn Rozak, 50 Conservation Drive. May I approach, Madam Chair? I have a letter I'd like to read, and I apologize, we didn't have time to get copies, but I was speaking with Matt yesterday. There are 2 packets. They relate both to the original 110.2 acres that was supposed to be given or put in a trust, within the proposed subdivision development, and also a report from the Wildlife Endangered Species. I know it's early because the conservation meeting was only Monday night, but has anyone in the conservation communicated to you our request as residents?
No.
Okay, just so
We're
briefly,
unaware.
and I know you're all at a disadvantage, but they are going to do, with the consent of the owners, they're going to do a species review walkthrough on May 7th at 1 o'clock.
Who is?
Conservation.
The endangered,
I'm sorry?
the endangered and
Heritage and endangered species, heritage.
It's going to be doing it?
I've been in contact with them, and I haven't received, confirmation back from them if they're able to make it on that day and time. Okay, I'm sorry.
No. I was just telling. Wait 1 second.
Okay.
So what do you have for your first document?
Okay,
Because we want to kind of separate, if Conservation Commission is handling that walk, then we'll
We presented
keep
these.
it to
Yes,
that.
but just so
Keep
that
it to that commission.
informationally, I wondered if the 2 boards had communicated at all about this.
Madam Chair, this was recently brought to my attention just the other day. I have spoken to our conservation agent. I've talked to some folks involved with the project back in the 90s. And I've also done my own homework with the GSP. There's a lot of moving parts here, and I don't believe anything's been formally scheduled for May 7th, 1 o'clock or anything. That's subjective, but it's not formal at this time. But I don't want to go down this slope now here in front of the planning board with conservation, as you mentioned. But there's still a lot of research that needs to be done, not only on our end, but with consent of the property owners. And I just think it's important to take the information that we're getting at this time, but I don't think it's something we should be prepared to address.
And Madam Chair, that's just what I'm asking, not to go through any of it tonight.
Okay,
It's not
yeah,
on the
you can
docket.
submit it for the record. Yep.
All right, so there's 2 packets. Pardon me. And then if I can just briefly read this, bear with me, get my readers. Okay. Town of Douglas, we put Planning Board and Conservation Commission, and this is primarily, it's residents, taxpayers in town, but primarily for these purposes, it's Conservation Drive. The following information is being provided for your consideration regarding the plan proposed by Sutton Douglas Development. They're proposing the subdivision on Parcel A of the plan of land for Preservation Park / Conservation Drive. We, the abutters and neighbors, are imploring you to continue protecting this land, which was designated as open space / conservation land. Eveningside Realty originally proposed the construction of a home on 23 Conservation Drive, which I know has been postponed, the meeting. in 2000. It was denied because it did not have enough land outside of the riverfront area. Eveningside Realty then tried to take the land from parcel A, the 110 acres that was supposed to, be for open space, to achieve the needed disturbance area ratio for the lot. The Conservation Commission denied the changes to this lot because the land they were trying to add to Lot 23 was in fact part of parcel A, i.e. 110 acres, in the Preservation Park plan. This land was to be conveyed to the town of Douglas, Conservation Commission, as part of the subdivision plan that was approved in 1996. The open space was given in exchange for waivers granted in the plans for the subdivision. I'm almost finished.
That's fine. Take your time.
In this packet, you will find all the information collected by the Douglas Conservation Commission used to protect that land. The lot was ultimately denied based on this and other information. And then it goes on to say in this packet what you will find: the denial, attachment B, clearing a clear intent, to donate the land to the conservation and/or maintain the land as open space, including meeting minutes, where the conveyance of the land is clearly stated by Eveningside Realty, and the surveyor was Mark Anderson from Andrews Engineering, quitclaim deed, etc. Meeting minutes where Mark Anderson stated that this land was to remain open space to obtain significant waivers from the planning board for Preservation Park conservation development. Excuse me. And we ask and say that it is imperative that you look at all of this, because obviously open space is very important to everyone here, including the proposed subdivision owners, I'm sure. So please look at this, and I apologize.
Thank you.
Okay, would rather have everyone see it, but, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience have any questions or comments regarding this hearing? Mr. Benoit, anything else?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Continue.
I'd like to continue. May 12th, 7:15.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Mark, seconded by Mr. Schultzberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night, folks.
Thank you, too. Okay, do we have anything else?
Yes. May 12th, right? Not a problem.
Thank you.
Little housekeeping items?
Madam Chair, can I recuse myself from the next item?
Yes,
Because I am an up.
yes.
Additional business item 4A, Blue Wave Solar Bond Estimate Discussion. The representatives here for Blue Wave Solar to discuss this. Just a little background here. For the last several months, we've been going back and forth with bond estimates since December or so with the consultant that we engaged to go over 3 different aspects of a bond estimate: roadway restoration, stormwater restoration, and decommissioning. Our consultant, I'm not sure if we made it.
Okay.
Onto the meeting or
Yeah, I
not.
think that's.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes, Matt, I am here, Jim Jackson.
Very good, thank you. So we have both consultants here, or both parties here to discuss this. That being said, I'll let Blue Wave kind of kick it off and introduce themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Benoit. Good evening. My name's Chris Knight with Blue Wave Solar.
And I'm Jeff Murphy, civil engineer with Beals and Thomas.
Okay.
Mr. Benoit, where would you like us to start? Just kind of a...
Pull the mic a little closer.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry. Soft-spoken.
Start with a general overview? Okay. So part of, or one of the conditions within our previously approved permit was a requirement that the town's peer reviewer review the 3 bond estimates that Mr. Benoit mentioned. I think it was back in December that Mr. Murphy originally shared those with Mr. Benoit. And I think at the time, Pear and Mr. Jackson did not have any specific comments on the road restoration bond as submitted or the stormwater bond as submitted. And the comments were solely related to the decommissioning estimate that was provided, which I believe everyone has a copy of, Mr. Benoit? Okay. So that initial December 9th decommissioning estimate totaled about $126,000, and that was developed based on estimates that Mr. Murphy had worked on previously related to previous projects. Shall I discuss the comments, Pear's comments, or should Mr. Jackson discuss those specifically? I don't want to speak on anyone else's behalf.
General overview.
Okay. Okay.
Keep going, and then we'll call on Jim to discuss this.
So specific comments related to the decommissioning estimate, we subsequently increased the decommissioning estimate based on those comments. In addition, we reviewed the estimate provided for the project at 170 West Street in town as well, and the revised estimate dated March 22nd of this year in the amount of $288,000, we believe, or was adjusted based on the comments from Pear, and we believe is consistent with the decommissioning estimate for the project on West Street as well.
Okay, so our peer review is in agreement with the final number. And we're gonna have a vote on that decommissioning number tonight.
So, Madam Chair, we had a general difference in opinion on the decommissioning estimate, but I think both parties are okay with meeting in the middle. I just
Okay.
wanted to hear from Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, let's confirm.
Yeah, so I reviewed the estimate prepared by Beals and Thomas, and our big difference was in the reusing the solar panels at the end of the 20-year life. They have an option to they're trying to reuse them, which is if feasible, that's probably the best way to go. Our estimate, we considered recycling them because we weren't there's no guarantee that there'll be a market for these in 20 or 25 years. So we used a recycling estimate, which was a little more expensive because there is some processing that has to be done to break down the panels for recycling. So we had a difference of I think $400,000 or $500,000 because it was fairly expensive. The recycling was $50 a panel, and it's approximately 10,000 panels. With the revised estimate, Beals and Thomas looked at recycling 30% of the panels, and then reusing the other 70%. And there was some salvage value to it. It wasn't a large amount. It saved on the recycling costs, so it kept their estimate down lower.
20-year lifespan.
And there's really no way for either of us to know what will be the use for those in 20 years. So I think taking a combination of the two is probably a good way to go.
I think so. Madam Chair, with my somewhat knowledge of solar, just because we have it at our farm and other places, there is no way to suggest that there is any reusable value to these 20 years from now. So I think the recycling one at the $50 per panel times 10 is fair. I mean, 20 years, there's going to be new panels out. No one's going to want to use these. I mean, it's just to think that these are going to be recycling. Sure, if they can use the materials, that's fine, but not to reuse the panels. Am I hearing this wrong? Is that what they're suggesting?
You're suggesting that 30% of panel, the 70% can be resold at $121,000 is not accurate? Do you think that 0% will be able to be resold?
I think it's 0% by then in 20 years. I mean, it's all new industries. I mean, this is, look what we've come in 10 years. So, I mean, I don't have a dog in the fight other than, for the town and but for the decommissioning of this, I mean, I just think that there's no value to these panels. I've been told on mine, 20 years, they're done. So there's.
Maybe even 5 years.
And they degrade over time. So, anyway, I'm not an expert, but that's my opinion, so.
Yeah, if I may. So panels typically degrade at about 0.5% each year. So you're still looking at a pretty high level of efficiency after 20 years. And we do have some pricing information from a company, ERI, who has a facility in Holliston.
Will they bond it and buy it in 20 years already? Will they commit to that? That'd be interesting.
Well, we could, yeah, I'm not sure we've got there as an industry yet.
But it is probably a fair question, because I certainly wouldn't buy, I mean, I would think.
We're basing our numbers on that assumption that someone will buy it.
Right. So I guess I would say there is a market today, and I think it's reasonable to assume that as solar continues to grow and more systems come offline and more panels are removed, that this kind of sub-industry of somehow reusing, reselling, recycling, repurposing will additionally grow. So I think that's reasonable to suggest. And I would also say that the typical reuse market is either abroad or used for O&M and replacement in the States. So we're not saying that 20 years from now, we're going to take all of these panels and go build a brand new facility with them, but they're going to be sold abroad to third world countries that maybe can't buy the highest and most expensive panels, or they could be used for replacement panels at existing systems.
Madam Chair, if they send them now, they might get there in 20 years. The way things are.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have figured out the supply chain.
And all of this, and I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but I just don't think we can, if there's a futures market in 20 years, like you'd pay for it now, and then in 20 years, someone invested in it now at this price, and then it's worth much more. But again, as many of them come off, there's going to be absolute saturation in the market with hundreds of millions of panels that are going to be upgraded, and then what market's left? It's all speculation. We can't really.
So within our estimate and within the information that was provided by ERI, there is a $5 remarketing fee. So even with the resale, we're paying $5 to somebody to deal with finding somebody to sell them to, getting them to that person. So I think that's an important piece of information too.
Shipping and repackaging and reconnecting.
Secondary market, he's saying, and
secondary market, just through the chair, because you guys with your ground lease and stuff like that, typically may have beyond 20 years for a site, like a 5-year extension, another 5 years after that. Right, typically with.
Yeah, there are options, so it's, but the lease itself, the term is 20 years.
And when you talk about degrading, it usually drops, it doesn't start out at 100%, the panel itself. It starts at like 94%, and then it degrades down to about 80%, maybe into 78% on the panels themselves over time.
Yeah, and I think, high 70s or 80% is still pretty significant 20 years in the future.
Yep.
Okay. So we're at 288,541?
I would also like to read.
Our peer review has agreed. You guys met in the middle?
Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, I believe it's a reasonable, estimate. I mean, it's no one can clearly say what, how many will be resellable or have to be recycled as back here. But I think 30% was a reasonable.
And just through the chair, and you already added in the 2% infiltration right over 20 years, so that's at least some accountability there for cost increase over time, so.
Okay.
And one last comment through the chair. It is consistent with the per unit estimate for the West Street project. The West Street project is almost twice as large, but on a per megawatt basis, it's consistent with the decommissioning estimate.
We've already went over that. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just for round number, if we make that 290.
yes. I'll entertain a motion.
May I craft said motion, please?
Yes.
We're looking to approve project bonding for the Oak Street Solar Project for roadway restoration at $12,000, stormwater restoration at $7,200, and decommissioning at $290,000.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg,
Second.
second by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Over the types of bonding, and you guys want to,
Yeah.
be more paperwork for the board to sign in the future.
Okay.
Yes, I don't need amounts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Hey, we can get Mike back.
We have something from Douglas Open Space Committee.
We do.
Get him?
I'm just going to read this out loud if that's okay.
Yep.
The town of Douglas has received an $18,000 grant to help, and the help of Central Mass Regional Planning Commission to complete an open space and recreation plan, pull together various wants and needs of the town, and enable us to get grants to fulfill some of these items. We're currently posting a survey to target the opinions and activities of interested residents, and the survey is out until June 1st.
Come back through the chair.
Thank you.
It is currently on the town website. So there's also a link to SurveyMonkey, www.surveymonkey.com/r/Douglas OSRP. You can also find this on the community development webpage. Anyone who has questions can reach out to us directly. Collecting information for the survey is extremely helpful for creation of open space plan. Public feedback is more than well appreciated, and we also encourage other boards and commissions to participate. As long as you're a resident in town, you don't even have to be a resident in town, as long as you are very familiar with your community. So just trying to create awareness for this and any of the public avenues that we may be able to do.
Great.
Thank you.
Pretty cool.
Mrs. Gogolinski, did you have anything for tonight?
Well, I was kind of hoping my thing was going to be on here, but is it?
It is.
It is?
Signal.
I'll stick around then.
Is she waiting for Mr. Monroe?
Signatures on our lobby.
Oh. Can we move that up?
Amazing.
Gilboa Court Extension?
Gilboa Court Extension, last meeting, we authorized the bond amount. There is some documentation for us to sign, as well as the lot release documents. The bonding amount is, a signature is requested by the town accountant. Once the bond is established, we will then release the lot release documents, but I anticipate these both happening within the 24-hour period, so I'll be holding the lot release documents until the bond is formally established.
Okay.
It's just whether, if the board wishes to do so, you can sign both tonight instead of having Ms. Gogolinski wait until the next meeting.
Yeah, we can just
We'll
hold
take
that.
care of it.
Yep. Thank you.
Sure. Sounds like that will be signed tonight.
And we have meeting minutes. Oh, we have Pine.
We have some others.
Yes.
Dust prevention plan?
Yes, this is an FYI for the board.
Okay.
A complaint was received by our department for dust control at Sleepy Hollow subdivision, and Pine responded accordingly by submitting a dust prevention plan to the Board of Health, and I just included this in your packet so you can see that it was addressed.
Thank you.
This is usually for this, I don't know. All right.
We continue to monitor that situation over there
Okay.
in-house.
If we can review the minutes, and Mrs. Lawrence, do you have something on ongoing development, ASD Wallen Lake Solar, briefly? Or are you just joining us for our meeting?
No. Madam Chair, I have
Oh, did you?
Ms. Lawrence, earlier today.
Okay.
I was just letting her know that we did receive an email from the solar developer kind of explaining to us that they don't yet have a response from their engineer, so we don't have an update in time for this meeting as we originally anticipated.
Okay. Mrs. Lawrence, did you hear Mr. Benoit's reply? We do not have an answer yet. Peer review engineer has not gotten back to us.
Oh, okay, thank you, and thank you for calling on me. Yeah, I explained to I sent an email. I've been sick, so I haven't
Understood.
kept up with things.
Yep.
Yeah,
No
so
problem.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We have one other item on our signatures. We have the Mylars for the Hawk Hill subdivision. At our last meeting, we signed the covenants. Those have been recorded. Plans have been updated to reference the covenants book and page. On the plans, they're available for signatures. The board would just need to make a motion to endorse.
So moved.
Mr. Zwicker, second by Mr. Schultzberg to endorse Hawk Hill Farms. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those will
Meeting
be-
minutes, did anyone have a chance to review those?
Mike?
Just through the chair. So Matt, we'll sign those tonight and then be ready to be picked up tomorrow.
Is that
Not that one.
pertinent
Back.
Well,
to the minutes?
no.
Oh, okay. I looked at March 10th, and as far as I can see, it looks good. I didn't see any problems with it.
Good. Cool beans.
So if anybody doesn't, I'll make a motion if you want.
Go ahead.
Right ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
Okay. I move to approve the meeting minutes as written for March 10th, 2022.
Motion
Second.
made by Mr. Greco, seconded by Mr. Sokrat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So
Motion
moved.
made by Mr. Mr. Schultzberg, second by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.